Mr. Packard. Mr. Packard will lead us in discussing Chapter 7 of Engage Every Family, which is our book study resource this year.
Yes, and my chapter concerns empowering every family. So there was a quote in the first sentence of the chapter. So it's talking about self-belief doesn't necessarily ensure success, but self-disbelief assuredly spawns failure. Albert Bandura. So did I skip? There we go. They talk a lot in the chapter about efficacy, and I struggled trying to get a good definition of that, but they talk about efficacy being where families believe that they can make a positive impact in their children's lives, and it simply means that the parent possesses skills, abilities, and resources to parent effectively, or they feel that they're empowered to produce a positive effect on their child's educational outcome.
You know, Jim, this is me too. I tried to come up with a similar, I've struggled with that too, but I found like a short line that said the ability to produce a desired or intended result. Isn't that kind of what, you know? The ability to produce a desired or intended result.
And the definition I saw was capacity,
right, and like,
or ability. Yes.
It is a hard, and like I was struggling with that also. I'm glad you said that because I felt the same way. Yeah.
All right. So they, excuse me as I'm being down on the trigger too long here. So they provide a description as to what empowering every family means. So families are recognized as essential members of the learning team. And the school understands that families are important as influential resources. So their participation is welcomed and valued and encouraged. So they make 4 points, and we're going to go over them twice. The chapter was kind of long and drawn out. They could have said it in fewer words, but the author's paid by the page, maybe, I don't know. He had these listed twice, the first of the chapter and at the end. So anyway, the school makes a conscious effort to educate families to play a proactive role in the school life. Families participate in the development of the student's learning plan. They suggest mentoring possibilities. And the school has in place induction processes to welcome and support families who are new. So that one's not repeated at the end. So, promoting I think I double-dipped again. What motivates parents? So there were 3 sources in this study model. The first centered on the parents' motivational beliefs that include the role of the parent and parental beliefs about their self-efficacy. Second is the degree to which parents and families believe that the school values their participation. So, and the third is in the context of the parents' personal lives and how those inform their own perception of whether or not it is feasible for them to be engaged. You may have to self-correct. So, promoting the efficacy of families. So they provided several suggestions in this list of 3. So in interactive homework design, they talked about the philosophy that requires students to go home and talk to parents about something they learned, and then the parent or family member writes what they heard and they send that back to school. So it doesn't require the parents to know the subject, but they can report this is what We were told about that. And the parents aren't required to teach the students anything for that. We talk about student-led conferences, and, we've had student-led conferences in the district for a long time. One of the first ones I was in was in Jane's class for one of my children. So, but we did it in middle school at that time. Not that it was that long ago, Jane. I'm just saying we participate. And then, yep. I was the parent. Oh, my. I stepped into that one. All right. And then the third point here is sharing data with families. They talk about finding appropriate ways of communicating data, sharing a range of data to show the whole child, giving families a voice in the conversation, and focus conversations on areas of growth and improvement that can be supported by the families. So then he went into a litany list of building successful relationships with every family. So he's got a list of 10 items that I'm going to go through here quickly. First one was relationships are the key. He suggested that the first communication from the teacher needed to be positive.
Without an agenda, which I found was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A lot of times our first contact with our kids from the teacher is at registration. And there's always an agenda at registration. I mean, there's things that have to be done. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. Another thing point in there was that they needed to ask parents about their concerns and opinions, part of that conversation. Then making learning meaningful and relevant, they talk about providing families with information on current and upcoming classroom assignments and not dwell on what has passed. So that is item number 3 there. And then under that said provide specific information so questions can be asked that contain either tell me about or show me, things such as that for the parent. So that, they listed 2 questions in there, right? What'd you do in school today? And the answer was?
Nothing.
Do you have any homework?
No.
So, yes, we want to avoid those situations. Very good. You all read it. So this is good. Either that or you knew the answers. 4, sharing the hopes and concerns. They talk about all families, regardless of their ethnicity or socioeconomic status, want what is best for their children. Link communications to learning. They gave an example that on the bottom of a weekly classroom letter home, the teacher may ask to ask your child about dinosaurs, write down what they say, and send that back tomorrow. And then using the campus website, social media, other technology. We heard just a couple weeks ago from Tess Green about the Classroom Dojo, where they're using that for behavior at the moment. So I don't know if the plan is to expand that beyond that or not, but there's a great way right there to use technology to connect with families and parents. Integrate families in the lesson planning. They talked about having 4 or 5 times a year where you have a family lesson where the student takes home a project. They do the project. They report back. The family does on what they learned. Supporting the knowledge and families of every family. Have parents and families share their experiences, and they talk about any family has something valuable that can be shared.
I like that example. I think it was
With the ladder?
the
have the carpenter bring the ladder in and,
and talk about geometry or
Yep.
math or, yeah. That's a good-
and developing the efficacy of families. The one point here that struck home to me was that consistently provide materials to families that couldn't participate. So if somebody couldn't make it, make sure they got the information. And in that way, you show that you care, that they're involved. You might be able to get them involved the next time. And number 10, believe that family engagement is essential. Anybody have comments about these or anything?
You know, we kind of kid about the answers we get from kids, about what you learned today. But if you think about it, I mean, we do the same thing. You know, how was work today? Fine. Anything happened? No. You know, how you feeling? Okay. You know, it's just kind of the pat answers. And we kind of model those kinds of answers sometimes.
I always
Okay.
ask my kids what they had for lunch today. Yep. Or who they sat by, what they did at recess.
Did you get an answer?
Sure. So what talking about school? Maybe that led to them talking.
Yeah. So, Daniel, I don't want to put you on the spot. Do you have any comments? You look like you read the chapter.
Well,
All those notes, you
I
studied
did.
it.
I did make a lot of notes. English classes paid off. Learn how to annotate. I do think that they listed off a lot of good ideas that I think would be beneficial to bring home to parents, especially with the asking. It mentioned somewhere here asking more than just the question of how was your day, or that. I think that was a really great. That would definitely be more beneficial to reflect on the day with the student.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
No, I think that, I think we talked about it in the chapter that I did, that like instead of sitting on the folder or what has happened, let the parents know what's going to be happening so that can be a point of discussion. Now, I know this week you're learning about dinosaurs, how's that going? Instead of after the fact, it's done. Now that they've moved on to something else, that, they really don't want to focus on that anymore. I think that's a really important thing, a point, it was brought in this chapter too, like focus on what is going to be coming and for the youth have. And a thing I was thinking about when we talked about sending home project for the parents. I think, in theory, it's a great idea, but, I'm thinking about how busy our society is now. And I know we've talked about you make time for what you make time for, but sometimes I think some of these things are a little bit out there. Like, I think that'd be very difficult for some parents to do something like that. Just personally, I think it would be.
You did make the point that we've mastered one-way communication.
Mm-hmm.
And so some of those constructive response kind of questions, or the parent saying, hey, teach me something you were taught today, or
Oh, yeah.
I thought those were
Really
great,
good.
simple, not super time-consuming for the teacher or for the parent, but could be more of the two-way communication rather than just the one.
You never understand a topic any better than a topic you've had to teach.
That's so true.
I like what he said about preparing for conferences with parents and reaching out to parents and asking them what they'd like to learn about in the conference. And so I could envision through some type of technology sending or even a list of here's possible ideas. Check the ones that you would like to talk about or that you're interested in knowing more about, with an opportunity to fill in anything that's not listed there, but make it simple for parents to respond to that. I really like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I envisioned from what he said. So,
I think the value of the book, and you sort of touched on this with a comment you made to me earlier, is that a lot of this stuff is common sense. It's not blowing our mind up with, my God, this is an innovative idea. A lot of these things are, common sensible things to do, but they're just different than the ingrained patterns that a lot of us have in our education. So, not seeing, this book doesn't need to convince us that engagement's a good idea. It's giving us ideas on how to go about it.
And I think just make it a conscious effort to keep in mind that, okay, this is a good thing to do, and like I said, we all know it, and we all know it's right. It's just making that effort.
And the other premise that started the book was that good engagement should not take any more time than
Exactly.
what you're doing now. Just do it differently.
Just do it differently.
And when he talks about being, really exact in how you determine if something you've done is successful, when he's talked about, if you have an event with 6 parents there versus 60, well, if those 60 parents are the already engaged, engaging the engaged is not a trick, but those 6 parents that came to the other one, those might be
Exactly.
6 that really need to be engaged. So numbers aren't the tell-all.
Yep. Speaking of numbers, I did have time to peruse the annual report that came out and saw that our parent-teacher conferences for the elementary schools and middle school were all 90 to 95%. So it's good. Last year. So.
Yeah, we do ask them to send that to us with a plan how that might improve. I get that information, but it dips as they get older.
Well, yeah, 40 to 30 into the 30s for the high school.
Strategies
Yes.
required for the type of engagement parents want as the
Yeah.
kids get more independent.
Okay, I'll go on then to.
That's one thing I think we can stress for everybody who might be watching this is that never in here does he say this is something that'll work for elementary kids but not high school. He talks about this being worthwhile and important at all levels. It's more difficult at times in high school.
I'm not going to read the 3 principles again, but we're trying to educate families to play a proactive role, and we want them to participate in the development of their students' learning plan, and we want teachers to suggest mentoring possibilities. Okay? So don't call me the expert just because I taught this chapter. Okay? All right. Thank you very much.
Great.
Thanks, Jim. Any other comments or questions about that chapter?
I was, the comment of if the 6 that showed up were the ones that previously weren't engaged, and the idea of sending the projects home for family projects, I get this very negative feeling that I have a hard time each time. I'm like, that's the 6 that aren't going to do that is the problem that we face normally is how do you get those 6 families to do that homework project? They're typically not the ones doing it. And so then are we just creating more of a workload and an idea that's only reaching the engaged again and making the disengaged feel more disengaged? Because we've got these 6 kids that come to school that don't have any idea what everybody else did, and they didn't do it again. And
I think the teachers that do that and have success, that get all the kids to participate, families to participate, that keep it simple, keep it really simple. And I know we have teachers that do that. And maybe we should do what they say. Maybe they should share that with others, how they do that. But I think it has to be simple,
Yeah,
Like
definitely.
I remember being Cub Scouts in the Pinewood Derby. I had no idea, and nobody in my family had any idea how to make a racing car. It would have been so much simpler if you just had a model to put together. And said, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just keep it simple. Don't make it so
Well, that's why I think
difficult.
a lot of projects are done at school because of that very factor, to where instead of sending them home, they do it at school. And a lot of that's done there because then the child has people help them. And materials. We had the one where that one chapter, I can't remember which one it was, where they didn't have the materials at home, so then they felt so bad about their child's project. It wasn't put on display like the others. So I think that a lot of times, things that are done at school, that all kids have the same playing field.
It reminded me of a time when I was a kid and we had a, little parent project sent home. And I was in 4th grade. We did times tables repeatedly. I mean, it was a huge deal, at least the way I remember it. And they sent it home for practice, but they said, there was a suggestion, see if your parents can do it with you. And man, my mom clinged to my clock. She beat me up and down. I mean, she was so good, 'cause I thought I was good. And it just, of all the things, you know from your upbringing, I remember that distinctively. So it was a project that I thought, like, that's a project, but it probably took 60 seconds of our time, and it was impactful for me. So it helped me remember that my mom was smart, so it's a good thing for kids to learn.
Sure.
And I think we automatically think it has to be academically focused. It could simply be, take this home and ask an adult in your home these questions. And whether there's no right or wrong answer, it's simply gaining information, their opinions about something, whatever that might be. Again, building from that success, like keeping it simple so success is easy, and then building from that. I think sometimes we send home a very complicated science experiment. Expect everybody to be able to handle it.
Okay, very good, thank you, Jim. All right, board candidate filing. At this time, we still have 2 candidates for the position of director of the school district. Filing ends January 16th at 5 p.m. The names of these candidates will be sent to the county clerk's office by January 23rd. The candidates in order that they will appear on the ballot are Charlotte Jamison and Brian Creedy.
When's the deadline again?
The 16th, yes.